Hello and welcome to Invertebrate Paleontology and Paleobotany at Utah State University. This is lecture 7, where we'll ask the question, how do you go about identifying a fossil? And so in this lecture we're going to go through and talk about some of the tools that are out there to allow you to figure out what you have, what type of fossil you have, and how you go about identifying a fossil. So you go out, you find a fossil, maybe you're out mapping, maybe you're out camping, and you find a fossil and you're like, I want to figure out what this fossil is, what type of species this fossil is. And so in this lecture I'm going to take you through how you can go about identifying a fossil and some of the resources that are available, both free resources as well as subscription resources to help try to identify that fossil that you've discovered. So the first step you probably might want to take is just checking out the internet and typing something into Google and trying to find what it might be. And with some places you might find some good resources. You might find a website that's put together by an amateur society or group that has lots of information on maybe the formation you're collecting in. There might be some really nice guides for identifying fossils that are out there in some of the more fossiliferous layers, and so the internet's a good place to go. But beware, because a lot of times when you're searching on the internet, a lot of these things aren't really checked. So sometimes the identifications, particularly identifications that come up when you're looking at for-profit fossil collecting sort of things that are out there, rock shops and things like that, they tend to slap a lot of names that are maybe not really scientifically valid onto specimens. So you want to kind of get beyond just using what's out there in the public with the internet and sort of refine your search before you really take that next step. So there's basically 3 things that you can do when you're doing your searches for trying to identify your fossil. The first is to look for names of your phylum or class. And so we'll go through that throughout the semester for each of the groups. So you should be able to identify your fossil to either the phylum or the class. Class is even the best. If you can do it down to family, you're going to be able to find it much more easily. The other thing you can search under is the rock unit, so the formation or member in which the fossil comes from. And that you can get from geological maps, and we'll talk about that today too. And then the other thing is to look under geography or geology. So the geography, so for example, look for trilobite specimens from Utah, and you're going to find a lot of good resources out there. Or you could say trilobites from western Utah or the Wasatch Mountains, for example, and find other resources that are out there. So these are all good ways to search. Whether you're searching a library catalog or whether you're searching the internet, these are all things you want to kind of keep track of and good ways to search for fossil identifications. So in today's lecture I'm going to go through sort of 2 categories of literature searches that you can do. And this is beyond sort of a typical library search that you might do with a library catalog. So we're going to talk about ones that are free on the internet that you can do that might be useful. Some of these might be useful, some of these might be not as useful, but they're all free. So I'll talk about each one of these. And then I'm going to talk about subscription ones, and these are subscriptions through the university library. And these are ones that some of these USU has and some of these they don't, but a lot of universities will have these subscription services. And I'll show you what these are, and they can be very helpful in finding resources to help you identify that fossil that you've discovered. So let's go to the first one, and that is Scholar Google. All right, Scholar Google is a really good search to do. It's very quick, it's free, it's out there. You just go to Scholar, scholar.google.com, and it looks just like a regular typical Google search you're going to do, but what Google does is that it only puts in peer-reviewed journal articles that are in here. Now, if you're a USU student or if you're a student at another university, you can also refine your searches, and I'm going to show you how to do that in your Scholar settings. So you go up to Settings, and what you can do is you can go down to Library Links. So if you're a university or college, you can search up and see if you have a library link. What this will do is when you do your search, so you can put Utah State University, and then you can select it. And so you can do your search. When you do your search, if your library has a subscription to that particular article, then it'll just go through the university system. And so it's really nice when you do that, because then you can access more articles this way. So you just hit save, and now let's do a search. So you type in this case I'm just typing in a genus, but we might be interested in a formation, and then a group, and so you can do a quick search. So let's do from Utah, and you click on it. So it'll come up with lots of articles, and you'll see over here a link to the article as well as the reference of what journal that's published in. So here you can click on any of these, and they'll take you to the journal article, and there you go. You can download your article and take a look and see if you can read through this to see if it'll help you identify the fossils that you've collected. So let's go to the next one. The next one's a really new one that just started, and that's the iDigBio. Now iDigBio is funded through the National Science Foundation, and it is a specimen-based search. So it's basically a number of institutions have got together, and they put up their fossil catalogs as well as living zoological catalogs into iDigBio, so you can search across multiple museum collection databases. So they're working on digitizing specimens, so they're digitizing a lot of specimens. Not many have been digitized yet, but they have quite a few. They have 44 million specimens in here, and to search you just click on search the portal, and then you get this wonderful map of all the the specimens they have, kind of a density map there, and then you can put in a lot of times you can put in a particular group, put that in there, and then it'll map out all the specimens occurrences. And it's pretty fast. It's very slick. Right now only a few institutions, the Yale Peabody Museum, the University of Florida, Harvard Museum of Comparative Zoology, and let's see if there's any. I think the American Museum is going to be in here as well at some point. So just a handful of institutions, mostly located in the United States, and you can do a quick search. The cool thing is it's specimen based, so you can go down and take a look at the specimens, and you click on it, and it'll tell you a little bit about the specimen. For the most part, there's not any pictures in here. So Phycops, you can't see a good picture of Phycops doing this search. However, you do get the catalog number and the museum that's located in. So this is very helpful if you're going to be visiting a museum to compare the fossil that you've discovered with fossils that are in the museum, and you want to check and see if they have a good representative of the things that you think it might be. You can go there. The other nice thing about this is that it has the a little bit of locality information on where it came from, and it also has the person to contact at the museum if you're interested in coming and seeing the fossil collections there. So it's very helpful. I think there's going to be more people using this in the future. It's just rolled out. It's pretty new. It's pretty cool. It's a nice, sweet interface. All right, the next one I'm going to talk about is PaleoDBG. It used to be known as PaleoDB.org, and that one's just a specific about fossils and paleontology, so it's a really good one to go to. Unfortunately, it doesn't have pictures of specimens, but it's very useful if you're trying to figure out, do a literature search and find the articles on particular fossil localities. So the paleobiology database, which is PaleoBioDB.org, when you get to it, there's two different interfaces that you can use. There's the classic version and then the Navigator version. The Navigator version is kind of a glossy app that you can use. It does a lot of really cool mapping features. It's kind of fun to play around with, but sometimes it can get a little clunky when you're trying to find a very specific information. So let me launch into the navigator and just give you a little demo of this. It's a very great resource. It's funded also by the National Science Foundation. A number of numerous people have entered stuff in here, so it's a pretty thorough database. It's got over 350,000 species listed in here. So when you log in, you can do under the navigator, you can select time periods that you're interested, like maybe you're interested in the latest Jurassic fossil localities, and you see that it adjusts in the map. You can zoom in on these sites and move around. You can also move the continents' positions to the positions they would have in the Jurassic, which is pretty cool. And so when you zoom in on these localities, they have them mapped out, and then you can click on them and find out the information. Now, all of these localities come from the primary literature, from scientific publications that have been published on each of these localities. So in this case, here's the locality. This is the reference for it. And so this is the Vertebrate Paleontology of Utah locality. They found a multituberculate mammal, and then they'll list the species and genus that's there. And so you get this really nice information. So you can go to the primary literature and find this book called Vertebrate Paleontology of Utah, grab it off the shelf, and take a look at the pictures to see if it might be something that you have from the same area. So that's really handy. You can go in here as well to each of these taxa and get more detailed information. So it's very useful, and it's a great interface. You can map things out, develop collections. If you click on this button here, you can download the information into a spreadsheet, which is very useful and helpful. So now let's launch into the classic version of the paleobiology database. And if you go down to fossil collections, you get this form here. And this is the form that you can enter in information, and this adds specific stuff. So if you're interested in, you're interested in, say, the stump formation here in Utah, you can type in stump, and you don't have to specify, late Jurassic or Jurassic in there, and then click on it. You can get these informations. This is the person who entered it into the database. This is the collection name, the locality name. And you'll note that I put in stump formation, but it's actually Jurassic. And so then you can click on this and get to particular publication that's in here. So Journal of Crustacean Biology, you can find the information here on the stump formation. If you found something in the stump formation, this is a great place to go. So you're going to have to find this article in the library, your local library, and then you can read it. Most university libraries might have the Journal of Crustacean Biology to look these things up. So that's the classic version, entering stuff in there. All right, the next database we're going to look at is one that's very similar to the Paleo Bio database, and that's FossilWorks, which is formed by John Alroy, who is a researcher down in Australia, who was one of the original, probably the original person to put together the Paleo Bio database. It's been added to over the years. He started FossilWorks, which has a very similar interface. So FossilWorks has basically the same interface. It's a little bit different, but it has the same analytical tools as the paleobiology database, and they're working together in terms of stuff that's in there. So there's things you can pull out of this database as well. It's maintained in Australia rather than the United States, and it's another really good resource to go into. The search is exactly the same as the classic view of the paleobiology database. In fact, it looks very similar. So another place, either one works really well in looking up information. All right, so the other thing you might want to do is actually look for individual museum collection databases and look up information of what specimens they have. And one of the largest museum collections here in the United States is the American Museum of Natural History in New York. And there is a interface to search for specimens in that, and I'll show you that. So this is the Division of Paleontology site. It's research.amnh.org/paleontology search. And you can search under specimens and you can type in different keys and it'll search across the fields, and so we can enter our trilobite. The nice thing about here is that they've been doing for the last 15 years imaging of specimens. So one of the nice things about the American Museum Collection database that's better than the iDig Bio is that they have a little bit more specimens that have been imaged. So when we search for image specimens of phycops, we actually see that quite a few come up, and if we click on them, we can get an image that comes up. So this is going to be very helpful when you're trying to identify fossils, as we can get little images that come up, and there's a little scale bar, and so this could be helpful as you're identifying specimens. You have the locality information, the formation, the state, Michigan, that this was found in, and that's very helpful for identification. So you may not necessarily have to go to New York to identify your specimens. You can actually identify it from your living room as you sit and query this database. So it's a really great database. There's a lot of images in here. I've been part of this years ago, entering information into this database, and I'm glad to see that it's doing such great work. Maureen O'Leary and Busher Husseini and a bunch of other people at the Division of Paleontology has really put a lot of effort keeping this running and keeping it going. So that's another good resource for identifying a fossil specimen. So one of the other places you can go is the United States Geological Survey if you're particularly interested in identifying fossils from the United States. And there's a really good new interface to their website for finding geological maps. So what's really nice with the USGS, so this is the National Geologic Map Database interface, and it's really nice. It used to be different databases that you had to query across. This is a really nice one because you can go in looking at maps and identifying an area, and then finding the geological maps of that area. And then you can download a lot of them, or doing stratigraphy and searching under stratigraphy. So one of the nice things is you can log into here. This only works for the United States, but if you're interested in searching on a particular unit, let's see, we can put in one that will generate a lot of stuff. We'll put in more. So just hit search. So this is the rock unit. It will give you, so this is the GeoLexicon result, so it tells you if it's established by the USGS and their maps, and then you can click on it, and then if you click on this over here, it's going to list the significant publications that are associated with these. And so these are going to be the geological maps of particularly important ones, and then it has the map of where these are. And this is pretty cool because you can actually click onto these and download these professional papers. Some of them are not available online, so you might have to check a library for these resources, but it's a good one. So if anything was published by the USGS, you can click on a lot of these, download them, and take a look at what you have. And it gives you a little bit of the information about them. All right, so the next one I'm going to do is PaleoPortal.org. Paleo Portal is a good one to go to if you don't necessarily know what museum you want to search under. It's kind of like the iDig Bio website. It's a little bit older, but it basically cross-lists with a number of institutions to do specimen-based searching of museum collections. So this is the PaleoPortal.org site, and if you click on collections, you can go to museum collections, and this lists the museum collections down there. So the Yale Peabody Museum, San Diego Natural History Museum, the Sam Normal, Oklahoma Museum of Natural History, Florida Museum, University of Iowa, University of Colorado, American Museum, Morphobank, the Paleontological Research Institute of Ithaca, University of Kansas, University of California Museum of Paleontology in Berkeley. So you got quite a few. So what this actually does is that it searches across various multiple collections. So each one of these collection databases have different fields, and so one of the tricks is to try to figure out the field. So you'll note that in these fields they have various things, so locality names, which may vary between places, formation, so you can search under formation and then conduct a search. The last one I'll talk a little bit about is the Tree of Life web project. This is kind of a cool one in terms of looking at various groups, and this may be important for groups that you may not be very familiar with. Basically, this is like a tree. It started at the University of Arizona, and it's been growing over the years. And each group of researchers works on a particular branch of the Tree of Life. And so you can jump around. So you can go to the root of the tree, and then you can work your way up. So eukaryotes. Let's see if we can get to humans. We got eukaryotes, and then we have animals, and then bilateria, and then we have annelids, brachiopods, mollusks, annelids, nematodes, deuterostomia, talk about deuterostromes, chordata, and you can see as you march up you get to different various groups. Verbata, humans, getting there, Gnathostomia, animals with mouths, Sarcopterygians, terrestrial vertebrates. Now we're going up even further, and amniotes, synapsids, therapsids, mammalia, eutheria. We're getting there. Let's see, and primates. And then we can get to Catarrhini, Homidae, Homo, and here's humans, Homo sapiens. So that kind of gives you a way of kind of like looking at various groups. This can help you in the classification things. Each one of these have pictures of just the various examples of each of the critters. They also have references as well that you can reference, and they usually use the pretty standard tree, the phylogeny that's accepted by most people, although if they do debate, they may show alternative versions of the tree as well. So it's good to kind of browse through. It's kind of fun, simple web pages for each of these branches of the Tree of Life. There's one other website that I'll mention that might be useful. And that's the Encyclopedia of Life. This is one at the Smithsonian Institution. It also has really good pictures and stuff. They basically try to create a website for every single species that's out there, and it's a very useful one. And they're getting better at fossils. So when you do a fossil search, it brings up some pretty good pictures and details. It also lists to various literature as well as the classification of the group. So it's another really good resource. And I think in the next 10 years, some of these big databases like EOL and the iDigBio and some of these things are going to get richer and richer as people go through and photograph these museum collections and put these online. So this is another one to check out. Very cool. Good pictures will come up. This is one that's maintained by the Smithsonian Institution. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about ones that require a subscription. So these are not free. If you're at a university or college that has a subscription to one of these search engines, then great. A lot of them do. A lot of institutions that at least have a program in geology or biology will have these subscription services. So I want to go through and talk a little bit about them and how you go through doing quick searches on some of these subscription search engines. So the first one is GeoRef. Now to get to GeoRef, you have to go through your library homepage and log in as a student of whatever institution you have. So this is GeoRef. In the old days, GeoRef was on DVDs that you'd plug into or CDs that you'd plug into a computer and search on. Nowadays, it's all on the internet, and you can log in under a subscription. You can do a basic search, so you just basically can enter in any term. So again, you might put in the formation. You might put in, you can put in multiple searches, and then just hit the search button, and it'll bring up articles. Now, there's a couple really nice things about GeoRef that I'll highlight. One is that you can set what decade or period of time that you want to see. So you may just want to see the papers that just came out in the last couple years, and that will search and bring up only those papers that came out in the last 2 years, which is kind of handy. It'll also allow you to look at, the publication source material. So you want to just do scholarly journals and not worry about books. So these are scholarly journal articles, and so you can weed down your search that way. You may also be able to do different languages, different document types. You can also sometimes, let's see here, search under publication title. So these are the different journals. So if you want something that's from the Journal of Sedimentary Research, you can click on that, and only the articles for the Journal of Sedimentary Research on the Morrison Formation come up. And so then you got that. The nice thing about GeoRef is you can also, in many cases, link to the articles through your library. So just like Scholar Google, you can link through and bring up these articles if your library has a subscription to these journals. So it's a very useful way of bringing up interesting articles, finding stuff. You can specify that it's all peer-reviewed as well. Okay, the next one is a new one that we got here at Utah State, but it's been around for a while, and that's the Geoscience World. Geoscience World is a partnership between the American Association of Petroleum Geologists and the Geological Society of America, as well as a number of other scientific organizations to put together another search that's very similar to GeoRef, but it kind of catered specifically to those organizations. The interface to Geoscience World is not as pretty as GeoRef, but you can specify information in there. Also, it has a mapping function as well, so you can search under a certain title and it will bring up those particular articles that have that search criteria. So it's a good place to go. You can get some really good articles. You can link directly into the articles from this search. So you might want to do both a GeoRef and a Geoscience World search. Just see the differences that come up when you do these searches. All right, the next one is called Web of Science. It's mostly used by biologists, and I don't use it very often. I usually use GeoRef or Geoscience World or Scholar Google are kind of the places that I kind of usually do my searches on. But Web of Science came out, it's been out for quite a while, and it's a very large search engine to find literature, more catering to biology than it is to geology, but you'll pick up a lot of things in the Web of Science. All right, so Web of Science is by Rutgers, Thomas Rutgers, so they do a lot of news articles as well that's in here. And so you can search over a lot of stuff. It's actually used in humanities as well, so there's a lot of stuff in here. And you can do a quick, search. So on here, actually, let's see how it does with a trilobite. So you can search, and you get some. So you get some good articles that come up. There's also an article linker that can link to the articles, so the information comes up. And then you can link to the articles through Web of Science. So Web of Science is another a good place to go doing searches. And so you might do multiple search engines just to see what comes up, whatever you have available, because you might find some articles in one search engine and not in another one. And oftentimes the ranks of these that come up in terms of relevance is usually based on the number of citations, and that might be different depending on the search engine. So these are good to go into to find articles, and then you can link to them and download PDFs and take a look at them. So these are really great, but what about if you're interested or you learn in doing one of these searches that there was someone who did their dissertation or thesis on your particular formation on the fossils, and this is a lot of times the case, but they never published it. It's just a unpublished PhD dissertation or master's thesis sitting in some university library somewhere, and you want to get your hands on it. The search that you do is through ProQuest dissertations. All right, so ProQuest, which is actually the same group that publishes GeoRef, also does dissertation and thesis searches. And so when you turn in your thesis or dissertation, ProQuest will index it so that people can purchase it or view it through their system. So again, you can type in a topic and do a search, and it will look for that particular thing, and it's going to find a dissertation. So here's somebody's dissertation. This is Niles Eldridge's dissertation at Columbia University. He published it in 1969. You can click on it, and it brings it up, and you can click on the article and try to get it. Well, they don't have it here at our library, but if we want, through this, you can actually, in some of these, you can order it, and they will print off and send you a copy of it. But this is another search that you can do. Sometimes you can get to find out, what library that was published in. You can actually index it. Sometimes I've ordered various dissertations this way. If there's a dissertation that's on some topic that I'm interested in and I would like a copy for myself, this is one way you can go through and purchase a dissertation and get a copy of it to take a look at. So it's a great service. Check it out if you're interested in those unpublished dissertations or theses. All right, the last one I'm going to talk about is the treatises of invertebrate paleontology. Now, the treatises of invertebrate paleontology was started to be published in the 1950s at the University of Kansas, and these were basically an encyclopedia, particularly on marine fossil invertebrate groups. So this was basically the experts on a particular group of fossils would get together. They would basically decide on all the species names, have really fabulous illustrations, and actually publish a book that would come out. And they started to kind of, every 10, 15, 20 years, depending on when the group met, they would come out with a new version. And so the Treatises of Invertebrate Paleontology, oftentimes in geology libraries, sits in the corner of the library, big, huge stack of encyclopedias, and you can pull things down. They're excellent if you're trying to identify invertebrate fossils, especially invertebrate marine fossils, things like bryozoans, bivalves, cephalopods, various groups of fossil invertebrates. So because these things are like an encyclopedia set and everything's going digital, the Treatises of Invertebrate Paleontology is now online, and they're starting to roll out new subscriptions. So as they revamp each volume and republish it, they come out and you can order a copy through subscription. It's about $100 per individual. Libraries, it's a little bit more expensive, and that way you can actually get it. The other thing you can do is actually purchase the complete treatises on a CD or DVD, and that way you have the entire encyclopedia set in digital format. They're pretty huge. So there's quite a few volumes that are out there now, and they're in all different parts that come available. So there's 51 volumes now of the treatises. They're available on PDFs on CDs. So you can download these information and find it. A lot of times, if you're working on a particular group, say you're working on the tabulata or the rugosa, or let's see, bivalves or something like that in various groups, and you want to get a copy, you can get a copy of each one of these. So they can be ordered separately or through CDs now. So oftentimes you can check the library and get a copy of each of these books or volumes, but be aware that they're being revised every few years. So some of these are older ones from the 60s, but some of them are ones that have come out, the Brachiopod one came out in 2007, so some of them are more recent than other ones. So really helpful, especially if you're working on marine invertebrate groups. So great place to go. All right, so hopefully these resources will give you a good sense of how you go about identifying fossils. And in one of these resources, you're going to find the information that you need to help identify your fossil. Sometimes there'll be measurements that you can use to help identify your fossil, pictures, things that are characteristic, and you can kind of narrow down the field and decide what you have. But be aware you want to look at lots and lots of papers, scientific papers, good illustrations. So the more papers, the more searching you do, the more confident you're going to be on your identification. The other thing you might want to think about doing is contacting an expert. So a lot of times on these scientific papers, there's the contact information, there's their mailing address and email address, and you may just email somebody some pictures and say, hey, what do you think of this? And they may be very quick to quickly identify it and let you know that identification. So it's a great way to get to know people, is just contact the expert on the field, and that way you don't have to do all these searching for the identification of a fossil. The other thing I highly recommend is visiting museum collections, especially museum collections that have large collections of the specimens you're looking at. Oftentimes they'll have that type specimen that you can compare your fossil to, and to make sure you actually have the fossil that you're looking for. So all these things are really important when you're trying to identify fossils. One last thing I want to talk a little bit about. If you're lucky, you might find keys, identification keys. Now, identification keys are out there, particularly in biology, where you can basically go through steps to identify the species you have. It's very rarely done for paleontology, but some amateur groups will publish keys. Keys are oftentimes published for very common invertebrates. They're found in certain formations where they are working with educational people, or they're working with a group of individuals that are going to be doing a census, and they need to key out particular species very quickly. So keys basically work like this. You read the first key. So in this case, number 1, primary spines perfectly smooth, at most with some longitudinal ridges without serrations, ambient primaries downwards curved, then you got that species. If not, the primary spines with more or less fine serrations or thorns, ambient spines not downwards curved, then you go to step 2. So you step through these and until you get to the species. So it's a good way to key out specimens, and this is really great when you have a huge collection. You need to identify them very quickly, and keys are a great way to do that. And you might think about how you can construct keys out of cladograms or suites of characters, and basically convert a character matrix to a key to key out things, and that's a great way to quickly identify fossils. The one thing I want to emphasize with paleontology, though, is that oftentimes you got to go beyond the internet and go into the library and pull out books. So a lot of times when you're dealing with synonyms, so these are lots of names that have been put forth, and you want to try to get some pictures and stuff, you want to kind of go and find physical books. They're oftentimes going to be published in the literature, but older books are beautiful with beautiful illustrations. And so you want to go and look at some of these really old books in libraries through interlibrary loan and try to find some really good illustrations. Oftentimes old books are extremely valuable in terms of identifying certain fossil specimens, because there may have been 1 or 2 people working on that particular fossil group over the last 100 years or 200 years, and there's somebody who spent a lot of time, and some of these really old books are extremely valuable for identifying fossils. And so definitely consult the library, dig around in archives, and try to find those really old references, because they can be extremely useful for identifying fossils. All right, thanks for watching. If you're watching this from the internet and are interested in the geology program here at Utah State University, go to geology.usu.edu. And if you're interested in who I am and want to check out some of my research and website, it's at benjamin-berger.org. Thanks for watching.